Hey guys, welcome back to Horseshoe Mountain Ranch. I'm Robert, and today we're going to continue with some of our mowing for the year. Today we're going to get some of them places that are just too wet to get to unless you're having a dry spell. And we kind of are right now. So this is the perfect time to get them, get those wet spots, cross that creek that you can't cross but any other time. So we spent the past 30 minutes or so getting the tractor ready. Had to do some greasing on it, grease the PTO shaft and all the 3-point hitch parts, tail wheel and all that, get that ready, fuel it up. And you know, the one drawback to having a cab tractor, that's a lot of glass to keep clean. And so washed all that off, and that's going to help y'all see. And then because of all the seeds and weeds and stuff and coming off of it when you bush hog, washed out the radiators and all that fun stuff. And unlike some, I mean, I had a New Holland years ago that had a screen here, and I know a lot of brands do, that you just slide it out here between that, clean it off, you're good to go. John Deere didn't think that was necessary, so it makes it really hard to try to wash it out in any meaningful manner. I mean, I've tried an air hose, you know, stuff like that, mixed success. And it seems like just turning the water hose onto it's the best you can do. And I know it's tempting to use a pressure washer, but as thin as some of this stuff is these days, you can actually destroy a radiator with a pressure washer if you ain't real careful. So just a word of advice there, because you know, everything is made to the least common denominator these days. So, you know, I just ain't gonna risk it no more. So hang on, and I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna put y'all in the window and let you watch. So, okay guys, we're over here where we're gonna start mowing, and there's goats in this field right now, but they're scared to death of this thing, so shouldn't be a problem. But we got a lot of this, you can see the old tall stuff. I've been told it's called lamb's quarter. I don't know for sure, but here we go. Now to rev it up. Okay, and you know, let's see here, that's a little fast. There we go. You know, all these attachments like this are rated for 540 RPM on the PTO, and some people act like that's the speed that it absolutely has to run at. Well, that's not true. You need to look and see how well it's cutting for your ground speed that you're going and adjust accordingly. I mean, just because like the tires on your car are rated to do 150 miles an hour don't mean you got to run 150 miles an hour the whole time now, does it? Well, the same thing applies here. You just don't have to wind it up that much. I'm running it like 410 right now, and it seems to be doing just fine. The benefits of doing it this way is you save a lot of fuel, and you know, fuel's expensive these days. And you know, you wouldn't hardly believe it, but a tractor this size, bush hogging, only burns about a gallon or so an hour. You know, by comparison, that's what our riding lawnmower burns. When you consider this is a whole heck of a lot bigger than a riding lawnmower, that's pretty darn good. But there's a lot of this stuff that you can't really tell it, but right where I'm stopping the mower, there's a little stream bed right there that gets so wet all the way up here to there's a little old pond that, well, the dam washed out a year or two ago, so it's not really a pond anymore, but you just can't cross it most of the year, so you gotta wait. And around here your dry months are August and September, and so you pretty much got to do all this then. It's really your only chance. So, and I'm having to be careful because I know there's a couple big rocks down in here somewhere. And I know this poor old bush hog ain't much, but I'm trying to make it last as long as it will. You go, why didn't you use your sickle mower? You spent all that time working on this spring. Well, this is a little too rough or something like that. You know, you really need something a little more rough duty. And this poor old thing's beat all to heck, so, you know, it's no great loss if it does die on me, but I'd rather it not. So, I know this is exciting stuff, but there's a lot of this to do on a farm. And you know, I don't mind sitting on a tractor all day. I grew up doing that. I guess my dad really wasn't as fond of tractor work, and so as soon as I was old enough, I got stuck on the tractor and turned loose. I probably wasn't near old enough to have been doing that. In this day and age, they'd probably call the child services on my parents. But I was cutting hay and plowing gardens with the tractor and all that stuff by the time I was 10, 11. I remember I was 9 when I got taught to drive the tractor. But I don't think I got turned loose on it quite that soon. I remember they had all the pine logs cut off this place once in them early years. And the old man that logged it was a neighbor. And he had it was summertime, so I was out of school. And he had an old Ford, it wasn't an 8-in, it's either a 9 or a 2. And they put me to skidding logs with that tractor. And I don't know if you know anything about skidding logs, but it can be pretty dangerous. And I mean, you gotta be careful, tractor rear up on you when you hit a stump, things like that. And heck, I was probably 10 years old, and I skidded logs that summer for that old man with the tractor. My parents would be in jail if they had me do that now. But on the farm, that's just part of it. Kids was raised to work. There was a lot of times they thought that's why they probably had us in the first place, for workers. You know, these new tractors are so much better at this kind of thing. With these shuttle shift transmissions, I'm just flipping you got a little lever over here where a turn signal will be on your vehicle, and you just push it forward for forward, backwards for reverse. And in the old days, you was sitting here, every time you got stopped, you had to reach forward and shift gears, and that would wear you out. This is so much easier. Okay guys, it's a couple hours later, and I've made a lot of progress. And now I'm over here by the house, and there's a spot here on the outside of the yard fence. It's really hard to get to. There's this big area all through here that stays nice and wet, and I can get through it now. And then there's a steep bank. Now, I know it probably doesn't show on a GoPro that well, but it's pretty steep, quite a drop off. There's only certain places where I can get up it and get down it, so we're gonna see what happens. So yes, we made it to the top. Now we're going up toward the pen of Dooley the Wonder Dog. And he's probably wondering, are they going to run over me? I'm going to die. Breaks up for first gear. These tree limbs are all in the way. It's getting to where you can't get through here nearly at all. It's like somebody needs to get out here and prune some trees, but I don't know who that'd be. Do you? That's the thing, you know, even though you can mow X number of acres an hour when you're out in the open field, you can't do any part of that when you're doing all this trimming and edges and under tree limbs and all that. You just can't do it. And better stop right there, because all of a sudden the ground drops out from under me. Get closer. Sometimes you can tell by the weeds where a stump's hiding, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes that'll make a good marker for you that will show you where something's hiding. But those particular kinds of weeds are so thick, so you look for that tail wheel to start going up, then you know you've come up against something. More of a drop off than you want to take with a tractor. The GoPros are bad at showing that, but it's like a giant terrace. Or some of it I can do from the bottom side the other direction. And it looks like there's a big pile of hay that I dumped there last year. Hadn't completely rotted down yet. Maybe that's on the stump. Yeah, or the next hump over. That's it. That's what I did. I buried it with old hay to try to convince it to rot faster. Ease into it. Boogers there's like 4 foot tall. Luckily I'm closing in on the end of all these kinds of projects for the year. I think I've got, after today, I've got one more full day probably of bush hogging in some of these undesirable locations. Done, and I can switch, take the bush hog off, probably put the box blade on. I've got some driveway maintenance to do. Alright guys, we're going to call that for today. Let me see if I can get y'all unstuck here off the window. So guys, thanks for dropping by, watching me mow some today. If you get a chance, drop back by again. I'll leave the gate open for you.